All right, so if you're thinking about studying in Singapore, um, I bet the IELTS is on your mind.
Yeah, I bet.
We've got these articles about IELTS requirements, right?
Right.
And even some success stories from this company, Let's Study, the one that helps students apply to universities in Singapore.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
So should we actually stress about taking the IELTS, or is this something we can just skip?
Well, it's a bit tricky, right? Because I think there's this misconception out there that it's like this blanket requirement, for
Right.
any international student who wants to study in Singapore. But it's actually it's a lot more nuanced than that.
Okay, so before we get into all those nuances, for anyone who's not already knee deep in applications,
Yeah.
remind us what is the IELTS all about?
Okay, so IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System.
Oh, wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. It's a big one.
Yeah.
But it's basically a globally recognized test
Mm-hmm.
that universities use to assess, whether students have sufficient English language skills to handle academic work.
Right,
So can you read?
right. Can you write? Can you listen? Can you speak well enough to keep up with lectures,
Right.
coursework, all that good stuff?
Got it. So it's like a gatekeeper
Yeah,
in a way, making sure everyone's on the same page linguistically.
exactly.
Okay, but here's the million-dollar question. Do all Singaporean universities actually, demand this test?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, right?
Okay.
So some of the top tier universities, like the really big names, National University of Singapore in US and Nanyang Technological University, NTU,
Yeah.
they tend to be pretty strict about IELTS scores,
Hmm.
but a lot of other universities are much more flexible,
More flexible meaning like.
meaning that they might not require the IELTS at all if you can show them that you have, strong English skills in other ways.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so there are places like James Cook, University of Singapore,
Hmm.
Kaplan Higher Education Academy,
Okay.
PSB Academy, SIM Global Education. These all have pathways where you could potentially bypass the IELTS completely. Okay, so that's good news for some people, I'm sure. But I bet there are still some rules around, when they'll let you skip it, right?
Right. Yeah, it's not like
Yeah, for
a
all.
free pass for everyone. There are definitely some factors at play.
Okay.
One of the biggest ones is like the specific university and the specific course you're applying to.
Mm-hmm.
So, think about it.
Yeah.
If you're going into something highly technical, like engineering or medicine,
Right.
the language requirements might be higher than, let's say, a humanities program just because the vocabulary is so specialized.
Right. You can't exactly fumble through medical terminology.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Then there's your previous education.
Okay.
So if you were schooled in English for at least, 3 or 4 years, a lot of universities will be like, okay,
Okay.
you're good. You don't need to take the IELTS.
Okay.
But you'll probably need something called a Medium of Instruction certificate or an MOI certificate to prove it.
Okay, so that's where that MOI thing comes in. It's like a little stamp of approval from your previous school.
Exactly. It's like, hey, we taught this student in English. They're good to go.
Yeah. Okay.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. Sometimes your nationality can play a role.
Really?
Yeah. So there are exemptions for students from certain countries,
Yeah.
like India, Malaysia, the Philippines.
Okay.
And often this is because of agreements between those countries and Singapore.
Interesting. So it's really like a case-by-case situation.
Very much so.
Okay, and I'm starting to see why those Let's Study success stories are so compelling. It's about finding those loopholes or those exceptions that apply to your situation.
Exactly. And let's not forget foundation programs.
Oh, right. Yes.
So some universities offer these foundation programs, and it's a way to help students kind of boost their English skills
Okay.
if they don't quite meet the direct entry requirements for the program they want.
Okay.
So you do this foundation course, and then often if you successfully complete it, you can skip the IELTS for your actual degree.
So it's like a built-in warm-up
Exactly.
before the main event.
Yeah, like a little extra prep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about those people who are set on studying in Singapore? They know they need some kind of English proficiency proof.
Mm,
Does it have to be the IELTS?
not at all.
Yeah.
There are actually a bunch of alternatives out there, and some of them might even be a better fit for you depending on,
Yeah.
your strengths and weaknesses as a test taker.
Okay, hit me with these options. What are we talking about?
Okay, so there's the TOEFL.
Mm-hmm.
That stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language.
Yeah.
That's another big one that's accepted globally.
Okay, TOEFL.
Yeah. Then you've got PT Academic, which is the Pearson Test of English.
Okay.
That one's computer-based, and it's known for really fast scoring.
Okay.
And then you've got the Cambridge English qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
And they offer a whole range of exams that test different levels of proficiency.
So many choices.
Yeah.
It's good to know students have options. How do you recommend someone figures out which test is right for them?
Well, first and foremost, you got to check what your target university requires.
Okay.
Right. Because they're not all going to accept every single test.
Of course. Yeah.
But then beyond that, I would say, think about yourself as a test taker.
Okay.
What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you are amazing at speaking, but you get super nervous writing essays under pressure,
Oh, yeah.
you might be better suited for something like the PTE academic,
Right.
which has a bigger emphasis on speaking tasks.
Interesting.
Whereas, some people find the TOEFL's computer-based format a lot less stressful than the IELTS paper-based tests.
Oh, so it's almost like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
You wouldn't use a hammer when you need a screwdriver.
Exactly. And don't forget, some universities even have their own internal English assessments or interviews.
Really?
Yeah, so it really does vary, which is why it's so important to do your research
Right.
and really understand all the different options.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Now I'm dying to hear about these Let's Study cases because they sound like they have some serious insider knowledge about making this whole process work.
Oh, yeah, they do. They really highlight how important it is to understand the nuances of each university and kind of find creative solutions.
Okay, spill the tea. Who did they help and how?
Okay, so one example is this student named Priya Sharma,
Mm-hmm.
and she was really set on doing a Bachelor of Business Administration, a BBA,
Okay.
but she was really worried about her IELTS score.
Oh, no.
So Let's Study helped her find universities that would accept her really strong 12th grade English marks instead.
Oh, wow.
So she didn't have to take the IELTS at all.
So they basically helped her leverage her existing qualifications.
Exactly. They're like, you already have the proof you need.
That's so smart.
Yeah, it was very clever. Then there's Arjun Nair.
Okay.
He was applying for a master's in computer science,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't sure if he even needed the IELTS. So Let's Study advised him to get a letter from his previous college confirming that his entire degree was taught in English.
Okay.
And that letter was all he needed.
Wow. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective.
Right.
It just goes to show that clear communication and documentation can really go a long way.
Big time. Okay, and the last example is Sinha Rao.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to study hospitality management, and she was like really, really nervous about taking any kind of language test.
Okay. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. So Let's Study helped her find a college that didn't require the IELTS or any of its alternatives.
What?
Yeah, they use interviews and internal assessments to evaluate the applicant's English skills.
Wow. So they totally bypassed that whole standardized testing hurdle.
They did. It was amazing.
That's so great. So it sounds like Let's Study is really all about finding the right fit for each student's individual circumstances and language background.
Absolutely.
I bet that's super reassuring for anyone who's feeling kind of lost in this maze of requirements.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They really emphasize that there are multiple pathways to studying in Singapore.
Right.
It's all about kind of exploring your options
Yeah.
and figuring out what works best for you.
I love that. I mean, these Let's Study stories, they're so inspiring, right?
Oh, they are.
It's amazing how they help students navigate all these, sometimes confusing requirements. And it makes you realize, like, sometimes it's not just about meeting the bare minimum.
Right.
It's about going that extra mile to really show those admissions committees that you're serious, you're prepared.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Taking those extra steps, even if a test isn't technically required, it just shows initiative and commitment, and that can make a big difference.
Yeah, it's like saying, hey, I'm not just meeting your requirements, I'm exceeding them.
Exactly.
That's-
It really makes you stand out.
Especially when you're up against, so many other qualified candidates.
Yeah, the competition is fierce.
And you know what? Let's be honest. A good IELTS score or, even a score on one of those alternative tests, it can be an asset even beyond university admissions.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
It could help with scholarships or visa applications.
Exactly. It's like having another tool in your belt, right?
Exactly.
It opens up more opportunities.
Absolutely broadens your horizons.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about, the IELTS and its alternatives, but let's zoom out for a second.
Okay.
What makes Singapore such a magnet for international students in the first place?
Well, I think it's a really interesting mix of factors.
Okay.
Singapore has this reputation for being so safe and clean and incredibly efficient.
Right.
Like their public transportation system, the MRT, it's world class. You can get anywhere so easily.
And I've heard their food scene is incredible.
Oh, the food is amazing.
Okay.
Singapore is like a true melting pot of cultures.
Right.
And that's reflected in the cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
You can find everything from Michelin-starred restaurants to hawker centers, which are these open-air food courts
Hmm.
where you can get amazing dishes from all over Asia at like unbelievably affordable prices.
That sounds like a dream for any foodie on a student budget.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's not just about practicality and delicious food.
Oh,
You know,
right. Of
there's
course.
something about the vibe, the energy of the place that attracts students.
Right. Like, what would you say that is?
Well, Singapore has this incredible drive for innovation and progress.
Okay.
It's a global hub. It's a place where East meets West, and that creates this really unique atmosphere that's both exciting and welcoming to newcomers.
Yeah, I can see that. And speaking of welcoming, I was really struck by the variety of universities and programs that Singapore offers.
Oh, yeah?
It's not just, one type of institution.
No, not at all. You have your large public universities like NUS and NTU,
Oh.
which are known for their research and academic rigor.
Hmm.
Then you have specialized institutes focusing on things like technology or art or business.
Right.
And of course, you have private institutions as well.
So many options.
Yeah, tons of options catering to different needs and learning styles.
It's like they've created this really diverse ecosystem of higher education with something for everyone.
Exactly. That's a
Yeah.
great way to put it.
So you're really good at spotting trends. What does all of this tell us about the future of global education? I mean, is English proficiency becoming even more important? Are we moving away from standardized tests?
That's a great question. So what's really interesting is that while English proficiency is undeniably still a key factor for international students,
Right.
how universities are actually assessing that proficiency is definitely changing.
How so?
Well, we're seeing a move away from that kind of one-size-fits-all approach with standardized tests like the IELTS,
Okay.
because they're recognizing that those tests don't always tell the whole story.
Right. And those let's study examples really highlight that shift, right?
They do.
It's about acknowledging that students have different strengths, different backgrounds, different ways of demonstrating their skills.
Exactly. So universities are becoming more open to considering things like prior education in English,
Okay.
internal assessments, even interviews, to get a more holistic view of a student's capabilities.
It seems like a really positive step towards a more inclusive and flexible system.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It acknowledges the fact that not everyone thrives in a high-pressure test environment.
Right.
And it can really open doors for talented students who might have been overlooked in the past.
I love that. Now, I want to kind of bring this back to you, our listener.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground here. What's resonating with you? What are your biggest aha moments so far?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And while you're thinking about that, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the application process itself.
Okay.
Now, I know this can be a daunting part for a lot of people,
Oh, yeah, it can be.
right? It can feel like a mountain of paperwork and deadlines.
It definitely takes organization and planning,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not insurmountable.
Right.
We can break it down into manageable steps.
Okay, so first things first, timing.
Okay?
When should you start thinking about applications? I'm guessing procrastination is not a good strategy here.
No, definitely not. Application deadlines vary,
Yeah.
but they're usually several months before the semester actually starts.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about studying in Singapore, start your research early.
Right.
Plan backwards from those deadlines.
Okay, so get that calendar out. Start marking those important dates. What's the first step once you've got like a program in mind?
Go straight to the university's website.
Okay.
Find their admissions section.
Mm-hmm.
That's your treasure map.
I love that analogy.
It is. It's your one-stop shop for all the essential information deadlines required, documents, specific entry requirements, everything you need.
It's like your personal guide through the application jungle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't hesitate to reach out to the admissions office directly if you have any questions.
Okay, good tip.
They're there to help.
Okay, let's talk documents. What are the must-haves that every applicant needs to gather?
Okay, so you'll definitely need your academic transcripts from your previous schools,
Mm-hmm.
which show all the courses you've taken, the grades you've earned.
Okay.
Make sure to request those early because processing times can vary.
Right, and if you're thinking globally, those transcripts might need to be officially translated or evaluated if they're not already in English.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And of course, you'll need proof of your previous degrees or diplomas,
Okay.
often in the form of certified copies.
Okay, what about those all-important letters of recommendation?
Yes.
How do you choose the right people to ask?
Well, think about teachers, professors, mentors who know you well academically
Mm-hmm.
and can really speak to your strengths and your potential.
Okay.
Choose people who can provide specific examples of your abilities and work ethic.
Right, because it's one thing to say, oh, this student's great, but to actually have those concrete examples.
Exactly. Show, don't tell.
Yeah. And of course, there's the statement of purpose.
Ah, yes, the infamous statement of
This is
purpose.
your chance to really shine, right?
It is.
Let your personality come through. Let your passion for your chosen field come through.
Absolutely. It's an opportunity to tell your story, explain why you want to study in Singapore, what you hope to achieve with your degree.
So it's your time to connect with that admissions committee on more personal level.
Exactly. And remember, clarity and conciseness are key.
Right.
Make sure your statement is well-structured, engaging, free from grammatical errors.
So we've got transcripts, diplomas, recommendation letters, and the mighty statement of purpose. Anything else?
You might also need a copy of your passport, proof of financial resources to support your studies,
Okay.
and maybe even a portfolio of your work if you're applying for something in a creative field like design or music.
Right. It's like packing for a big trip.
It
You
is.
want to make sure you have all the essentials.
Exactly. And here's a bonus tip. Double-check everything.
Okay.
Make sure all your documents are complete accurate and that they meet the specific formatting requirements outlined by the university.
Right. Because a small oversight could really delay your application.
Absolutely. It could.
And it never hurts to have a fresh pair of eyes review your materials.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Right. A friend, a teacher, a mentor, anyone who can give you some honest feedback.
Yes, they might catch typos or suggest improvements you hadn't considered.
Right. It sounds like applying to study abroad, it's as much about organization and attention to detail
Mm-hmm.
as it is about, your actual academic qualifications.
You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, the reward at the end of this journey is the incredible opportunity to study in one of the most vibrant and dynamic countries in the world.
That's true.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up this part, I think it's important to acknowledge that, this whole process from navigating the IELTS to, assembling your application, it can be nerve-wracking.
Oh, it definitely can be.
Right. It's a big step.
Yeah.
Putting yourself out there, sharing your dreams and aspirations with a panel of strangers.
It takes courage.
It really does, to pursue those ambitions, especially in a new country. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Remember to celebrate each milestone. Learn from any setbacks, and most importantly, keep that end goal in sight.
And know that you're not alone.
Right.
There's a whole community of international students who have been through this process and are eager to share their experiences and support you along the way.
And that sense of community is something we'll explore more in part 3.
We will.
Right? We'll go beyond the academic side of things and really delve into what it's actually like to live in Singapore.
Yes.
The culture, the quirks, the things you won't find in a typical travel brochure.
The real nitty-gritty.
Exactly. And we'll even uncover some hidden gems and share some recommendations that might just, spark your wanderlust and get you even more excited about the possibility of studying in this amazing country.
Can't wait.
All right, so we've tackled the IELTS, we've demystified the application process, and now it's time to, trade those textbooks for travel guides
I like it.
and really dive into what life in Singapore is actually like, I'm ready to swap the application stress for some of that delicious food you were talking about.
Well, get ready for a flavor explosion.
All right, bring it on.
But even before we get to the food, one of the first things you'll notice about Singapore is just how clean and efficient everything is. I mean, their public transportation system, the MRT, it's a dream.
Yeah.
Fast, affordable, and spotless. You can zip across the island in no time.
So ditch the car and embrace the MRT.
Yes.
Got it. What about safety, though? Because I know that's a big concern for a lot of students, especially if they're, moving to a new country all on their own.
Yeah, you'll be happy to hear that Singapore is consistently ranked as one of the safest cities in the world.
Wow.
There's a really strong sense of civic responsibility and a very low crime rate.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really focus on your studies and enjoy exploring the city without, any unnecessary worries.
That's so reassuring to hear.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's talk about the thing that I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Food. You've already mentioned hawker centers, but what else can students expect from Singapore's culinary scene?
Oh, get ready for a flavor explosion. Singapore is a true melting pot of cuisines. You've got influences from China, Malaysia, India, Indonesia, and beyond, all blending together to create something really unique and delicious.
So it's not just about the hawker centers, although those do sound amazing. What if you want to try something a little fancier?
Oh, you have plenty of options for that, too. Singapore is home to some of the world's top-rated restaurants,
Wow.
offering everything from modern European cuisine to traditional Peranakan dishes.
Okay.
And even if you're on a student budget, you can still find so many delicious and affordable meals at, local cafes and restaurants.
Sounds like there's something for every taste and budget.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, food is covered.
Yeah.
What about things to do in your downtime? What are some of the must-see attractions?
Okay, so for nature lovers, you absolutely cannot miss Gardens by the Bay.
I've heard so much about this.
It's incredible. It's like stepping into a futuristic wonderland with these super trees and the stunning floral displays.
Wow.
And then you've got the Singapore Botanic Gardens, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site
Oh, wow.
with over 160 years of history.
So much green space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really nice. The good contrast to the bustling city vibe.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're interested in history and culture, are there like museums or temples or anything like that?
Oh, tons. You could visit the National Museum of Singapore to learn all about the island's past,
Okay.
or check out the Buddha Tooth Relic Temple in Chinatown,
Mm-hmm.
which is a stunning example of Buddhist architecture.
It sounds like Singapore has really managed to preserve its heritage while also embracing modernity.
They have. It's a really cool mix.
Speaking of modernity, I've heard a lot about Singapore's focus on innovation and technology.
Yeah, it's true. Singapore's a global leader in those areas.
Okay.
They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible,
Yeah.
from sustainable urban planning to, cutting-edge research and development. And as a student, being immersed in that kind of environment is just so inspiring.
It's like getting a glimpse into the future. Okay, so we've covered the highlights. Give us some insider tips.
Okay.
What are some hidden gems that students might not find in, your typical guidebook?
One of my favorites is Tiong Bahru. It's this really charming neighborhood with Art Deco architecture, independent bookstores,
Oh.
cool cafes.
Okay.
It's got a really unique vibe, and it's a great place to escape the crowds and just wander around.
I love those off-the-beaten-path discoveries. What else you got?
If you're a film buff, check out The Projector.
Okay.
It's an independent cinema
Yeah.
housed in this beautifully restored old theater.
Cool.
They show a mix of art house films, documentaries, local productions.
That's definitely going on my list. Anything else?
For something truly unique, try catching a traditional Chinese opera performance.
Really?
Yeah, the costumes, the
Yeah.
music, the storytelling, it's a completely different experience from anything you'd see in the West.
Wow, that sounds amazing. See, this is why I love these deep dives.
I know, me too.
We get to uncover all these little nuggets of knowledge that make a destination really come alive.
It's about going beyond the tourist traps
Right.
and experiencing the heart and soul of a place.
I love that.
Right.
And that's what we hope you'll do when you study in Singapore, right? So as we wrap up our Singapore adventure, I want to leave you, dear listener, with one final thought. We've talked about all the practicalities, the IELTS, the applications, the logistics.
Right.
But at the end of the day, studying abroad is about so much more than that.
It is.
It's a chance to broaden your horizons.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself, immerse yourself in a new culture.
It's about growth
It is both personal and academic.
and creating memories and experiences that will stay with you long after you graduate.
Exactly. So if you have the opportunity to study in Singapore, grab it with both hands. Embrace the challenges, savor the journey, and who knows, you might just discover a part of yourself you never even knew existed.
Well said. Until next time, happy exploring.